Hello, welcome to this week's lesson. I'm Brian Vermeer. We're continuing our series on temptation. And today we're looking at the temptation to place other things before God, continuing the series on the temptations of Jesus. We're reminded again in Hebrews 4:15, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin." So we're reminded that Jesus underwent every single kind of temptation that we undergo. And let's look at, real quick, the three types of temptations again. In 1 John 2:16, it says, "For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride in one's possessions is not from the Father, but is from the world." And a couple weeks ago, we looked at the lust of the flesh, when Satan tempted Jesus to turn stones into bread to satisfy his personal hunger, similar to Satan tempting Eve to eat the apple. Genesis says that Eve saw the apple was good for food, and she was probably also hungry at the time, and that's a temptation to do things just for selfish personal desire. And then last week, we looked at the pride in one's possessions when Satan tempted Jesus to jump off the pinnacle of the temple, which would be tempting him to use his status as God's son and as being specially favored by God for a personal gain. That is, in order to get a whole lot of followers immediately by doing something miraculous like that. And this was similar to Satan tempting Eve with the apple, saying that, or with the fruit, saying that it was desirous to make one wise, that it would give her something that would make her more like God. So today we're going to look at the third one of these. We're going to be looking at the lust of the eyes. This is a temptation to do something because it looks good, because it is attractive. The temptation to give in to something that is pretty, that you just think, will make you look better. So today, we're in Matthew chapter 4 again, and this is the third of the temptations, or the second if you're reading this in the book of Luke. So let's look at verses 8 through 11 of Matthew chapter 4. It says, "Again the devil took him to a very high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to them, 'I will give you all these things if you will fall down and worship me.' Then Jesus told him, 'Go away, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him.' Then the devil left him, and angels came and began to serve him." So it says that Satan took Jesus to a very high mountain. Now, we don't know what mountain this was specifically. And it says that he showed Jesus all the kingdoms of the world. Now, this is not something that would normally be in Satan's power to do. Satan cannot show you things like this at a glance. Satan does not have that kind of power. So God must have allowed Satan to do this, to be able to show Jesus all the kingdoms of the world. Or this could just be a idiom. For example, someone standing in a very high place and looking and seeing for a very great distance in all directions and saying, "It's like I can see the whole world." Maybe this is just a simile for, Satan showing Jesus, a very large area. And Satan is telling Jesus, "I can give you all of these kingdoms. You don't have to go through your ministry. You don't have to let yourself be crucified. You don't have to undergo any suffering. I will give all these people to you. I will tell all these people to worship you if you will just fall down and worship me." Now, there is some debate as to whether or not Satan could even follow through with this promise. There are some who say that no, these kingdoms didn't belong to Satan, and Satan couldn't have given them to Jesus even if he wanted to, because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So, could Satan have actually given these kingdoms to Jesus? Don't know. There are also some people who say that, when Adam and Eve sinned, that control of the earth was temporarily given over to Satan. So Satan did have the authority to give all these things to Jesus. I think it's kind of like, what I just said there. Satan is saying that I will use my ability to influence all these people to have them follow you. So whether or not Satan could actually follow through on this promise is actually irrelevant. If he couldn't, then it would be just like Satan to lie to Jesus, just like Satan lies to us and gives us false promises of things that he can do for us. But it's irrelevant as to whether he actually could follow through with this or not, because Satan is tempting Jesus to worship him. That is, to put something else ahead of God. Now, Satan does not need our worship. Satan, let me clear this straight with you. Satan does not care who you worship. Satan is not looking for followers of him specifically, because Satan knows the truth. Satan knows there is only one true God. And Satan knows that the only way to heaven is to follow the one true God and his Son, Jesus Christ. So Satan does not need you to worship him. Satan just needs you to worship anything other than God. Satan doesn't care what religion you belong to, as long as you're not a Christian, because he knows that being a follower of Christ is the only way to get into heaven. And Satan knows that he has been condemned to hell. He knows that one day he is going to be cast into the lake of fire, and he wants to take as many people with him as he can, because he knows that we are God's special creation, made in the image of God, and he knows that nothing would disappoint God more than for people to be sent into hell. So Satan doesn't care what you do. Satan doesn't care whether you're a good person or a bad person, as long as you don't give your life to Christ. Satan doesn't care whether you're Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, atheist, Satanist. Satan doesn't care whether you even claim to be a Christian. In fact, he likes it best if you claim to be a Christian but really aren't one, because then he can use you to make others believe they are Christians when they are not. Satan's biggest lie that he spreads is all you have to do to be a Christian is be a good person. Say you believe in Jesus and just be a good person. That's not what makes you a Christian. Being a Christian is having a relationship with Jesus, giving your life to Jesus. It's not just saying that you believe in Jesus. Jesus said, you say you believe, great, even the demons believe and shudder. So Satan doesn't care what you believe. He just doesn't want you to believe in God. He doesn't want you to accept Jesus' gift of salvation. And he wants you to put anything between you and God. So this isn't about Jesus worshiping Satan. This is about Jesus putting something in between himself and his relationship with God, making something more important than your relationship with God. Jesus counters Satan again by quoting from Deuteronomy. So let's go back again to Deuteronomy chapter 6. And Moses' farewell address to the people. And let's see what passage Jesus is quoting here. He's quoting from Deuteronomy 6, verse 10. So let's take a look at Deuteronomy 6, verses 10 through 12, first of all. Moses says, "When the Lord your God brings you into the land he swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he would give you, a land with large and beautiful cities that you did not build, houses full of everything that you did not fill them with, cisterns that you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. And when you eat and are satisfied, be careful not to forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the place of slavery." You know when most people turn away from God? They turn away from God when things are going good. Because when things are going really good for you, we tend to forget that it's God who provided those good things. Most people only turn to God when things are bad. Moses is about to lead these people into the promised land. And he's reminding these people, you're about to enter this land. Now, this isn't just an empty, barren land that they're going into. This is a land that already has cities built, that already has thousands of people living in it. It already has farms, already has growing crops, already has wells dug. And God's telling them, you're about to go in and you're going to conquer this land, and you're going to live in these cities that you didn't build. You didn't work for them. You're going to take over these farms that you didn't plant. You're going to eat from these crops that you didn't grow. You're going to drink water out of these wells that you didn't dig. You're going to live in these houses that you didn't furnish. You're going to wear these clothes that you didn't make, that you captured from all these people that I'm sending you in to conquer. When you do that, don't forget, God says, that I'm the one who brought you here. If you have anything, it's because God gave it to you. Don't forget that God is the one who gave it to you, and don't put your faith in your stuff. Don't get so caught up in everything that you've got that you forget that God is the one who provided it. Job had all of his stuff taken away, and what did he say about it? The Lord gives, and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. God is the one who gave you all your stuff. God can just as easily take away all your stuff. If you have anything, it's because God allows it. So don't let your stuff get in between you and your relationship with God. Don't get so comfortable in your lifestyle that you forget to spend time with God. And don't forget to give God His portion of what He has blessed you with. We talked about last week the one time that God asked people to test Him was when He said to bring the tithes into the storehouse. God's law said, give me 1/10 of your harvest, of your crops, of your money that you make. Anything that I've given you, give 1/10 back to the temple. The purpose of that was to pay the temple workers because they deserved money to live on as well. They deserved food to eat as well. So don't forget, when God blesses you, to turn around and use some of that to bless others. Let's continue on and look at verses 13 to 15. And here's what Jesus actually quotes. It says, fear the Lord your God, worship Him, and take your oaths in His name. Do not follow other gods, the gods of the peoples around you, for the Lord your God who is among you is a jealous God. Otherwise, the Lord your God will become angry with you and will obliterate you from the face of the earth. People like to ask, how could God tell the Israelites, how could a nice, good, just, loving God tell the Israelites to go into this land and completely kill everyone in these cities? The first city they came to, the city of Jericho, God said, kill every person, man, woman, and child, kill all of the animals, and destroy everything in the city. Don't even take any portion of the plunder for yourself. And then as they went through to other cities, God said sometimes, kill everybody in that city, and then you can take the plunder. And sometimes God said, you don't have to kill everyone, just kill all the men. How could God tell the Israelites just to go through and kill all these people? Well, what does God tell the people here? Don't follow the gods of the people around you. God was using the Israelites to bring judgment on the people of the land of Canaan. The people in the land of Canaan were related to the Israelites, but they had turned away from God. They were all either descendants of Abraham or at least descendants of Shem, of Noah's son Shem. So their ancestors all at one time knew the true God. But yet, while the Israelites were gone away to Egypt, the people who remained in Canaan turned away from the true God. And during the 400 years that the Israelites were in Egypt, God was dealing with these people in Canaan, trying to get them to repent. And they wouldn't do it. So God is using the Israelites now as judgment against these people. And God is worried that if the Israelites let some of these people live, they might intermingle with them, they might intermarry with them, and when a good person associates with a bad person, usually the bad person is more of an influence on the good person than the good person is on the bad person. Usually the bad person brings the good person down more than the good person brings the bad person up. God is saying, don't let these people live, because if you let them live, all they're going to do is influence you to worship their gods. And He says, I'm a jealous God. I will not let you worship anybody else. Now, please remember, none of these gods that the Canaanites worshipped were even real gods. None of these gods even really existed. They're worshiping stories. But the true God is saying, I don't even want you doing that. You worship me. And don't let these people drag you down. We find out later on, of course, that the Israelites didn't follow through. They didn't kill everybody that they were supposed to. And because of that, some of these people survived, and their practices survived. And we see then throughout the rest of the Old Testament a history of the Israelites falling into idol worship because of these people that are around them, letting these people be a bad influence on them. And God constantly then bringing judgment on the Israelites. They then repent, turn back to Him for a while, and then they fall into it again. All of that could have been avoided if they had just done what God had told them to do here. Don't follow the other gods, the gods of the people around you, for the Lord your God who is among you is a jealous God. Otherwise, God says, I'll become angry with you and I will obliterate you from the face of the earth, just like I'm having you do to these people. I am obliterating them from the face of the earth. I'm using you to obliterate them from the face of the earth because they turned away and followed other gods. They let their stuff get in between them and the true God. They let their stories about Ashtaroth and Baal and the other false gods get in the way of their worship of the true God. They let their festivals, their parties, their holidays that they like to celebrate get in the way of their worship of the true God. Don't let even the practice take the place of the worship. When Christmas comes, and I'm not condemning Christmas, I'm not saying you don't celebrate Christmas, but how many people are there who use holidays like Christmas as an excuse to party and to do sinful things, to get drunk? And they forget the reason why the holiday is there. Things like St. Patrick's Day, which is a day set aside to remember the man who brought Christianity to Ireland. How many people use that as just an excuse to party, and they don't even think about God? They don't even think about who St. Patrick even was. St. Valentine's Day, Mardi Gras, these are all originally religious holidays. Yet we let our traditions get in the way of our worship of God and our thanking God for the things that these people did that we're supposed to be remembering on these days. Don't let your stuff, don't let your lifestyle keep you from worshiping God. Fear the Lord your God, says Moses. And he's quoted by Jesus. Worship the Lord your God and serve only Him. Serve Him above yourself. Don't let the temptation to put things before God keep you from your relationship with God. To relate this to Eve, talking about things that look great, that look nice, and get in the way of us and God. This is when the same thing as Satan telling Eve. It says, when Eve saw the fruit, that it was pleasing to the eye. The fruit looked good. It looked delicious. And that got in the way of God's command not to eat it. So we see that the temptations of Christ are just like the temptations of Eve, just like the temptations that Satan puts in our path. But remember, Jesus was tempted every way that we are, yet was without sin. If He can do it, we can do it. God always provides a path that we can avoid committing the sinful act. Next week, we're going to talk about what to do if you have fallen into temptation, which all of us have done. How do we recover from our fall into temptation? If you enjoy these videos, please leave a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I need just a couple of more to get 50 subscribers. Thank you for watching.